That bag of potting mix sitting in your garage right now is quietly killing your container plants. I know that sounds dramatic, but stick with me, because once you understand what is actually happening inside that pot, you will never grab that bag for a perennial again. Here is the truth. The garden industry will never print on the label. Standard potting mix was never designed for plants that live in a container for years. It was built for annuals, for one quick season, and then it breaks down and drowns the roots of everything you planted. But there is one thing you can use instead that makes your container perennials last 3 times longer, and almost nobody is selling it to you. If nobody has ever shown you this, subscribe right now. Every single week, this channel puts out exactly this kind of content, and it is completely free. Stick with me. Let me start with the word itself. Potting mix. All-purpose. Universal. It sounds like it was made for every plant you could ever put in a pot, and that is exactly what the industry wants you to believe, because one bag that does everything is one bag they can sell to everyone. But here is what they never tell you. That mix was formulated for annuals. It is built to be light, cheap, and thirsty, holding plenty of water for a bright, fast-growing plant that lives a single season and then dies with the first frost. That is its entire job. Now think about what a perennial actually needs. It does not live for one season. It lives in that same pot for years, sending roots deeper, demanding stable structure and steady air the whole time. That is a completely different job, and the bag in your garage was never designed to do it. Most people never question the label. They grab the bag, fill the pot, and have no idea they just set their plant up to fail. So, what actually goes wrong over those years? Here is what happens, slowly, where you cannot see it. That potting mix is made almost entirely of fine organic material, peat or coir, and tiny bits of compost. And organic material does one thing in a warm, watered pot. It rots. Within a single season, those fine particles start breaking down. By the second year, the whole mix has collapsed in on itself into a dense, heavy, airless sludge. And this is the part almost nobody understands. Roots do not just need water, they need air. They breathe through tiny pockets between the soil particles, pulling in oxygen every single day. When the mix compacts, those air pockets vanish. The roots are packed into wet, suffocating muck with nowhere to breathe. It chokes them. It starves them. It slowly shuts the plant down from the bottom up. So if your container perennials always seem to fade in their second year, no matter how carefully you watered and fed them, that was never your fault. It was the medium working against you the entire time. But compaction is not even the part that kills them fastest. The real killer is hiding below the soil line, and it is the cruelest part of this whole thing. As that mix breaks down and packs together, it stops draining. Water goes in, and it has nowhere to go, so it just sits there, soaking the roots day after day after day. And roots sitting in standing water cannot breathe at all. They begin to rot. Quietly, invisibly, from the tips inward, the root system starts to die, while the plant above still looks almost fine. Then comes the trap. A plant with rotting roots can no longer pull up water, so it starts to wilt and droop, exactly like a plant that is thirsty. So what do? You water it more. You give it the one thing that is actually killing it, and you finish the job yourself, completely convinced you were trying to save it. I want you to be honest with me right now. Have you ever watered a struggling potted plant more and more, only to watch it die even faster? Tell me in the comments, because almost everyone has done it. Now here is what you use instead. Everyone wants the answer, and almost nobody has ever sold it. The swap is simple. Instead of a fine, peat-based potting mix that rots and packs down, you use a coarse, bark-based mix. That is the whole secret. Bark. Chunky, woody pieces of bark that build a structure full of permanent air pockets, the exact thing fine potting mix loses within a year. Those gaps let water drain straight through and let air flow to the roots constantly, season after season after season. This is not some obscure trick. This is what professional nurseries and serious container growers have always used for plants meant to live in a pot for the long haul. Walk into the back of any real growing operation and look at what their long-term plants are actually potted in. It is bark, not the fluffy bag on the store shelf. So why are you not being sold it? Because a mix that lasts for years is a mix you do not have to buy again every spring. Durable does not move product. Now here is exactly how to make it yourself. And here is the best part. You can mix this yourself in about 5 minutes, and it costs you less than the bag you have been buying. The backbone is pine bark fines, small pieces of aged bark that give your mix its lasting structure. That is the bulk of it, roughly 5 parts. To that, add about 1 part perlite or coarse grit. This locks in permanent drainage so water can never pool and sit. Then add about 1 part quality compost or a good potting soil, just enough to hold some moisture and feed the roots. No more. 5 parts bark, 1 part grit, 1 part compost. That is the entire recipe. And it bends to whatever you are planting. Growing something that loves moisture, like an astilbe or a fern. Push the compost up slightly. Growing something that hates wet feet, like lavender or sedum. Add more grit and let it run drier. 1 simple base, adjusted in seconds, and you have built a container your plant can actually live in for years. But here is the part most people never find out. Why does this actually work? Why does a little bark make the difference between a plant that limps along for 2 years and one that thrives for 5 or more? It comes down to one thing. Bark breaks down slowly. Where fine peat and compost rot and collapse within a season or 2, woody bark holds its shape for years. And because the bark holds its shape, those air pockets stay open. The drainage stays open. The roots keep breathing, keep growing, and keep feeding the plant, season after season, instead of slowly drowning in their second summer. That is the entire reason your plants last so much longer. A standard mix gives you maybe a year or 2 before it collapses. A good bark mix holds its structure for 3, 4, even 5 years. That is where the 3 times longer comes from. And I want to be honest with you, because this channel does not deal in magic. It is not a miracle. It is simply the right material doing the job the wrong material never could. Now here is how to actually do it right. So you have your mix. Now let's make sure you do not undo all of it on planting day, because a few small mistakes will sink even the best medium. First, the pot. It must have real drainage holes, and I mean open holes, not a decorative pot that traps every drop at the bottom. Throw out the saucer that sits full of water, because that saucer turns your perfect draining mix into a swamp. Second, wet the bark before you plant. Dry bark actually repels water at first and sheds it right off, so soak it down until it drinks. Third, feed lightly. Because a bark mix is leaner than a heavy potting soil, your plant wants a little steady nutrition, so mix in a slow-release fertilizer and let it work all season. That is it. It drains, it breathes, it lasts. Get those 3 things right, and you have built a home your perennial can live in for years, not months. There is one last thing that keeps it going season after season. Here is the long game, and it is almost laughably simple. Instead of ripping your plant out and repotting it every single spring the way the old mix forced you to, you just refresh. Every couple of seasons, scrape off the top layer and replace it with fresh bark mix, or fully repot into new mix if the plant has outgrown the pot. And the plant will tell you when it is time. If water suddenly races straight through without wetting anything, or if it starts sitting on top and refusing to soak in, or if the level in the pot has visibly shrunk down, that is your signal. A few minutes, every few years. That is the entire maintenance. Now here is what I want you to take away from all of this. A container perennial that quietly dies in its second year is not your failure as a gardener. It is the result of being handed the wrong medium by an industry that profits every single time you are forced to replant. The right mix breaks that cycle for good. You build it once, you refresh it now and then, and your plants finally get to do what perennials were always meant to do, which is come back, year after year, stronger than before. So tell me in the comments, what have you been potting your perennials in all this time? If you switch to a bark mix this season, come back and tell me how your plants respond, because I read every single comment. If this video just saved your container plants, the least you can do is hit subscribe. It is free, and I am back every week with more of what the industry will never put on the label. And before you go, I just put out a video that pairs perfectly with this one. It is right there on your screen. Go watch it now.